You're listening to another episode of Open Source CXO, the podcast designed to share insights on how to excel in your business using technology, regardless of the industry. Host Robert Kehoe is a self-taught software developer who has grown to the role of CEO. Renowned for his collaborations with organizations such as Stanford University, Nelnet, and Louis Vuitton, he continually seeks new challenges to conquer in the world of tech. Accompanying him is Don Blackburn, a veteran COO with over 25 years of experience in cultivating diverse relationships and driving innovation in various technical projects. Each week, they'll be sitting down with some of the nation's foremost technology leaders to develop an open source playbook, drawing from their firsthand experiences in the field. Let's talk some tech.
Today, our guest is Ben Kittrell, VP of Engineering for Homebase, a local company here in Kansas City. Welcome, Ben. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Homebase is a smart building technology company, mostly focused on multifamily buildings, apartment buildings, student housing, and we build solutions around access control, Wi-Fi, thermostats, like smart integration into apartment buildings. And we were recently acquired by a company called Quext, based out of Lubbock, Texas. A very similar company, a lot of synergy there. So that's what I'm working on right now.
I still wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the acquisitions thing, just because the fact that you've done 4 of them is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be, I've never talked to anybody that's been through 4 acquisitions. You rarely talk to one that's just been through one.
They're just tossing you around, man.
Various sizes, like, some bigger than others, I'll say, but yeah.
But from an acquisition standpoint, you've been on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the acquiring and being acquired.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest challenges? I would think from a tech standpoint.
Overlap would be kind of like, you're the CTO, you've acquired a company who has a CTO, or you were acquired, they have a CTO. What do you do with the extra CTO,
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about merging teams as well.
Obviously, it's highly dependent on the situation. Some situations are asset purchases, like, strip them for parts situations. Yeah. Like, I thankfully have not been through anything like that. I think the situations that I've been have been really good, relative to a lot of what other people have been through. And typically what happens is you start with like, what are some obvious redundancies, usually like in the software, right? Like we're both, you're using Rippling, we're using Gusto or Zero or whatever. Right. Why pay 2 bills? So that's like the low-hanging fruit. And then you start to work on...
You have to go through the process of merging, and that sounds like a task.
Well, and you have to evaluate, like, what's our return? Like, is it worth the cost of doing this, or should we keep paying this $100 a month? Like, it's all the evaluation of cost benefit. Mm-hmm. But, and then typically, like, some obvious redundancies are usually in, like, HR or operations. Right. Again, thankfully, I don't think a lot of that happened. I know a lot of it didn't happen with the Homebase Quext merger. I don't think a lot of that happened with Storable. It's been a while, so I don't remember. But we were very fortunate in that. So operations, and then usually the last thing is the engineering team, because it's so complicated and you have different tech stacks and egos and product and all of this. It's something you have to work out. Usually somebody, not usually, always it's like one person, one of the CTOs becomes the other's boss, and
I'm sure that's worked out beforehand, but that still would be kind of an interesting, process.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you tell yourself, like, I don't have an ego, it's not a big deal. And I've never had a real problem with it, but everyone deals with it differently. But I think, again, it comes back to the people involved, and usually you want people in your company with a high emotional intelligence that are able to say, you look at it as an opportunity and an adventure and a journey. That's the way I try to look at it. That's the way I try to talk about it with my team and get them to look at it. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't been through a situation where I've had to lay people off or anything like
good.
that, thankfully. Because and usually in software,
I guess that's unusual, but that's
Yeah.
good.
well,
Well, I mean, so the company down in Texas, I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's
but
cool.
The company down in Texas, they acquired you guys. What's to say they want to keep, the Philippine-based developers if maybe
Right.
they have their own set of developers. So have they chosen to keep them engaged and doing their thing?
So for right now, it's still pretty business as usual, and I think that's smart for
At least for a while. Right?
for a while. The thing is, at first, it's just a cacophony. Like there's so much going on, it's impossible to make like really good decisions that complex and strategic that early on. You have to let things settle a little bit. Even just understanding each other's product is a huge thing. You think you know somebody's product,
Right.
and you think you're speaking the same language, and you say, well, we have a payments platform, and you have a payments platform. But it's like, well, what does that mean? Are you handling recurring payments, and do you handle refunds, and so you have to get down to the nitty
You guys
gritty of
merge
all
those?
that.
Do you guys merge? Are you planning on merging the products, or keeping them sort of separate?
That's an interesting topic. So with Quext, the decision was made. Yes, eventually the idea that the products are so similar that at some point in time we haven't made a decision. There will be one product. There's no reason to have two. That's
course.
two dev spins.
But that's
right.
the acquisition process for that alone might be kind of
Right.
a while in the making. I'd imagine it's not something you can flip a switch, turn on.
Right.
So
But-
that is, and if I overstep my questions here, feel free to.
No, you're good.
I don't want to cross over.
I
into
won't
that
say anything
territory.
I'm not supposed to say. I've been well trained. But on the flip side, so at Storable, it was Red Nova, and we merged with a company called SiteLink, which was a direct competitor. But we made the decision explicitly to not merge the products. We made that decision because they were different enough.
Right.
Theirs was a Windows-based platform. Ours was a cloud platform. They had stronger in this set of there's two markets, right? And so that was the distinction that was made, and the sales team decided, okay, this lead is probably a better, and we didn't hide it from anybody. It's just like, these are two products that this company can sell, but that's not always the case. So
Gotcha. What happens in the case where, let's say, I don't know what your guys' tech stacks are. I thought yours was Laravel and PHP.
Yeah.
But in Lubbock, let's say it was .NET, and let's say they've acquired your guys' product, whatever. It could be, merging the teams. What happens to the developers who are, and you, let's just say you decide to merge those platforms, and over time, that's what you guys do. I can imagine having a bunch of PHP developers on a .NET project may not be the best plan forward. Is that something that you just deal with kind of as I'd imagine that would have to be, at least thought about.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best case scenario is it's very incremental, and it's so complex, right? Because so even if we made the decision to say we're no longer going to do any PHP, we're all, in this case Java, we're only going to do Java. Well, we still have customers that are on that PHP platform, and that's going to need to be maintained and supported for a while.
Yeah.
In this case, it's in a situation where they have both sides has a lot of value in different ways, and they have their backend service microservices that are set up in a way that we could incrementally consume them. So that's one potential path. Or I think the worst thing you can do is make like a really big knee-jerk decision and say we're gonna do this.
Right. Shut that one off and we're going. We're switching.
Yeah, and sometimes that's probably what has to happen. In this case, I think there's a really great path towards an incremental integration, but then it comes down to is there still a place for the PHP developers, and then it comes down to if that is no longer a thing, are they willing to
pick up something
pick that some?
Would you guys give your devs time to let's say that?
I would.
You guys? Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely, if they're interested. I mean, there's varying opinions on this, but I think a good developer should be able to
syntax differences,
right? And I think it's a lower cost, I would say, like to to retrain somebody that you really like, that knows the industry, the platform,
Right.
like all the
Industry knowledge.
intricacies, than to bring somebody just totally new in. I mean, I don't know if it's a cost savings, but it's probably not that much
It
different.
could be a toss up. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be a challenge in your one-on-ones at this point, doesn't it? A lot of people going, what's going to happen to me? You know, hey,
Yeah.
we're getting acquired.
It hasn't come up a lot, and I hope that's not because people don't want to ask me about it. But I try to be. I think the best thing to do in that scenario is just to be as transparent as possible.
Sure,
And,
this is what I know.
right. Yeah, and the whole company has tried to do that from the beginning. It's not, well, I can't tell you that. It's like, well, here's what I know. That's all I know, even if it's I don't know.
Or even if it changes, you know.
Yeah. And so I try to just over communicate, and every time I know something new, I'm either sharing that in one-on-ones or in like a lead meeting, or like just trying to get, and some of that becomes water cooler talk and disseminates out to other people. But it is very important to keep a very positive attitude, obviously, as a leader, and look at this as an opportunity, which you should, like hopefully it is. But at the same time, you do want to be realistic, and I would never lie to somebody and say, yes, your job is secure when I knew that it wasn't. And I do also, I try to ride the line of, this looks really good. But at the same time, based on my experiences, you honestly never know. Like,
Right.
you never know when there's a wolf in sheep's clothing. I do not, to the people listening to this, developers that are listening, I don't think that's the situation with Quex. I do think that this is a really good merger, but at the same time, I've been through some situations that have made me like have a healthy amount of skepticism in these
Sure.
types of situations.
Have you had quite a bit of interaction with the new team?
Yeah. Leadership team has been down to Lubbock, and they've come here, and we just had a couple of meetings with some of their leadership today. And yeah, so I mean that's obviously really important. Is just I think just it's interesting because you have, no matter how similar you think your cultures are and everything, it's always a little different, and just giving people time to getting know each other, and like you make assumptions about people based on one meeting, and then you have to let that develop over time, and there's definitely a certain amount of just getting used to it that has to happen, and you have to balance that with urgency and everything else.
Gotcha. So the cultures are similar, you think?
The cultures at Quex and Homebase, there's some differences there, and I think that you just have to figure out how to work through that, and that's what I always tell people is this is the job, right? This is why we're here. Don't look at this as a problem. It's like this is to me it's fun. It's like it's a problem to solve.
Yeah.
You got to come up with strategies, and like I said, keep a healthy amount of skepticism, but look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, it's the difference between Lubbock, Texas, and Kansas City, which is going to be fairly significant.
So the company that's acquired you guys, if they had, and they might, a different process for handling various things, whether that's the way you guys check code into repos or whether that's the way that somebody should be communicating, if that changes, things on your guys' side, is it separated enough still to where you would have to kind of take that information and just kind of work with your team, or is that just, I guess, how does all that work if they have like a difference of process entirely?
Yeah. So right now it's separate enough that it's not an issue, but the way I would think about it is I think that should be pretty flexible all the time, right? I would like to run teams where, if one team wants to do things one way and one team wants to do things another way, Kanban, Scrum, or whatever, if they have a good reason to do that, then do that. And I would, if I were in a situation where right after an acquisition, the new whoever says, okay, you have to do things this way now, and I don't care why, this is just how we do things, I would be very resistant to that. Yeah. And advocate against that for my team, because that to me, there's a whole lot of problems with that whole situation. And so I think that, over time, it would be good to start to unify, larger principles and like what is it that we're trying to do. Um, but again, this is really a situation that I haven't run into at Storable. It was very similar, like very similar Scrum processes, almost identical. So that was just not a thing.
Yeah.
I do think that in this current situation, I think that they're a little different. But and even based off of my conversations with their CIO, I think that there would be room to be like, okay, we're just going to keep doing things this way. And that's the conversation that I had with him last week is, we have a well-oiled machine. And to do anything to disrupt that would be a disservice to the company.
everybody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, so why would you do that? Like, just to say, because I think this is better than that. And so hopefully people don't run into that situation.
Right.
I don't know how you would handle that if you did.
It's just so intricate. This whole process seems. And you guys are, it's not a tremendously large development team, but I could imagine bigger companies would. It's just a challenge, in my opinion.
For sure.
Interesting. Okay. No, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. So this was awesome. This was a good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having
Hope
me.
you felt good about it too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anytime.